There we go.
All right.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Welcome. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining.
Just give it a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we will kick off.
You know, those who are already there are most likely the early adapters. So probably already knowing a lot about this topic. Let's see.
Excellent. Still some people joining. I'll give it another few seconds. Welcome. Hi to everyone joining. Right. I think we should kick off because I'm just conscious of time. Right, it's 1 minute past. Let's begin. So, hi everyone, welcome, and thank you for joining us on this latest ITAM Forum webinar, where today with RayNet, we will be talking about how a technology catalog can help increase cybersecurity, reduce IT costs, and optimize software portfolios. Alongside me today is Dennis Westhoff, who I will hand over to introduce himself in just a moment. As for myself, my name is Kelly Yip. I'm from the ITAM Forum, and I've been in the ITAM world for about 13 years in both the audit space and the tool space. So this is a topic that I'm very interested in. When I think of a technology catalog, I often think, well, I wouldn't go walking around a big city without a map because I just don't know the landscape. And I think this analogy works really well because your technology environment is a lot like a city and equally difficult to navigate if you're going in blind. Today, we're going to learn why a technology catalog is important, but we'll also learn how it benefits you and in which ways. We'll talk about the specific challenges businesses are facing and how these can be mitigated. So if anyone has any questions at all as we go through, I encourage you all to use the Q&A function available on the toolbar. And lastly, before I hand over to Dennis, we are interested today in hearing from our attendees. We want to know if you have and use a technology catalog. We're also interested in understanding what the main driving factors are for you when it comes to a technology catalog. So if you're happy to participate, there will be a poll available in a few slides' time. On that note, I will hand over to Dennis to tell us about himself and talk a little bit about who RayNet are as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kelly, also for the invite. I'm very happy that we can talk about the technology catalog technique in general today. So what does it really mean for ITAM? As you can see, cybersecurity, IT cost, software portfolio, all very important topics, all hot topics at the moment. And well, myself, I'm Dennis Westhoff. I'm Director Sales and Partner at RayNet, doing that for 8 years already. And RayNet itself is doing application lifecycle management for 25 years now. So we have some experience in that area, doing a lot like endpoint protection, like software packaging, like full transparency for companies, for software and hardware, and of course also with technology catalog. And well, as Kelly mentioned, I'm really excited to see what you maybe currently struggle with, how far you're already using a technology catalog, and what are your topics, especially in the item area.
Wonderful, thanks for that. So, Dennis, we all know that there are numerous catalogs out there, and I thought it would be a great idea for you to kick things off with a bit of an introduction as to what a technology catalog actually is.
Yeah, perfect. There are many catalogs out there, and I'm always very excited to hear how people name it when you're in projects. Like it's always like we already have a catalog. Why do we need a second one, a third one, a fourth one? There are like 3 catalogs or categories of catalogs that are out there. At least that I can imagine at the moment. And first of all, in the item and especially ITSM area, there's the IT service catalog. That's typically the catalog that you would give to an end user in a graphical user interface where the end user can see what options he has, like what kind of software or hardware can I order? That would be one thing he can see. Or further services. I don't know, any kind of ticket services that you have, like I need a new PC, I have an issue with my PC. It's all included in the classic IT service catalog. So there are numerous catalogs like that out there. And also it's a highly customizable thing. But yeah, there are also many options with predefined catalogs out there. And the second catalog, that's more in the area of license management, which is the SAM catalog, so the Software Asset Management catalog. And that is all about licensing and compliance. So you need to have the information about how to license a software product so that you can have the compliance. You are not under license or over license. You are compliant with the rules of the contract. And whenever there is an audit, you are well prepared to survive that audit without having to buy too many licenses, without any further costs that might apply to that. And what we will focus on today is like the third option, at the technology catalog. And a technology catalog is there to like optimize the central overview of all your IT environment. So it's there to normalize your software and hardware and also to enrich your software and hardware so that you can get information that you could not get by just technically doing an inventory, for example. So you want to add market information to that software, for example, or to that hardware, which might be the function of the software, which might be end of life, end of support information, or also a very hot topic in cybersecurity, what are the vulnerabilities known for that software in that specific version? So that's some of the information that you would want to see in a technology catalog.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, I mentioned earlier that we have a poll that we'd love for you guys to complete. I'm just going to distribute it now. Right, I am launching the poll. And
oh, perfect. I can answer myself too. That's good.
Oh, there you go. So I'd love for you guys to answer. It's just really, it's useful information for us. It's always handy to kind of get feedback on where people are at, where businesses are at. I'll just give it a couple of seconds for you guys to answer.
Exactly.
Oh,
so
wow.
First question is like, do you have a technology catalog at all in place already? Which is a simple yes, no question. If your answer is maybe, you can also write it in the chat. And the second one, of course, is which use case you are focusing on. Like, is it portfolio optimization? Do you want to optimize your CMDB data quality? Do you want to have the full transparency of your environment with the IT asset visibility? Do you focus on vulnerabilities, or is it end of life, end of support, or same as in the other question, any other topic? And if you click on other, please also write in the chat what you're looking for.
Excellent. So I will give it just a couple more seconds because there's still people responding. but we've had 61% of people have responded already. And actually, you know what? I'm going to talk through the results as I'm seeing them come in, because I think this is really interesting. So 67% at the moment are saying yes, they do have some kind of a technology catalog. 33% no. So that's really interesting. And then when we look at for which use case do you use or want to use for a technology catalog in the future, the top answer here is IT portfolio optimization, which I think is less of a surprise to me. But that's in fact, no, I tell a lie. The top answer is IT asset visibility, followed by IT portfolio optimization. Then we have CMDB data quality, which is 53% of people have selected that. EOL and EOS management, vulnerability management is after that as well at 37%. And then 11% of people selected other. I'm going to end the poll now.
All right. It's an interesting mix.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Excellent. I wonder if, so I believe I'll be able to share those results. I'll pop that to the side and see if I can share that later. Perfect. Thank you everyone so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Let's carry on now. So I will.
Absolutely. So
Sorry, I'll go back.
No worries. I just wanted to talk real quick about the results, because it's quite interesting. Usually we do not have such a high amount of participants that already have some kind of technology catalog in place, or as we saw in the chat, that are currently like deploying the technology catalog. So that's quite interesting. But that's also showing that there is a huge need to do that, and that's people are actually focusing on this. And with the use cases, that's quite interesting as well. Usually, there are many more people focusing on the cybersecurity part, but at the end of the day, it's also not really important which use case you're looking for, because once you build up a technology catalog, it's easy to adapt all the other use cases, right? Even if you are in a big company and have specialists for each area, like in smaller companies, most times it's the one team with the CEO or CIO focusing on everything. In bigger companies, you usually have like a specialist team. But when you have it in place at one central point, it's easy to adapt also the other use cases. And we will go into detail about that like in some minutes. So we also brought you some personas and some quotes, some real life quotes in here. And well, we have some examples. So for example, on the very left side, there's many talking people at the same time. We have the IT infrastructure manager who's typically maybe dealing with outdated systems. So that's a very common thing that we still see. When we have the transparency and go through that, there are many old systems which are not supported anymore, sometimes which people didn't even know would exist anymore. Sometimes even with a good reason behind that, like they still need that old system because they can't touch it, because if they update it, like their processes behind it won't work anymore. So a very huge topic, outdated systems and how to manage them. Of course, you have the cybersecurity engineer, and what's their first topic? They want to have a secure system. But at the same time, you can't just close every port and firewall and say, okay, this is a secure system. You want to have some kind of good usability for your users. You want to have a secure system without interrupting their work too much. So that's what is typically driving the IT security engineer. And also they want to like summarize all the different information, cybersecurity at one place, at one single point. We have the IT portfolio manager, and that's a very hot topic for me, at least what I see in projects. Many companies are now focusing on that position. Like in the past, it was also part of the SAM team, and now it's getting more and more a little bit as a special team. So there are people who are only focusing on optimizing the portfolio. Like if you have multiple business functions, can I replace some of that software? Or can I optimize it to reduce the amount of business functions or amount of software products per business function? So that's a very important topic, as well as, of course, the HAM manager. A very typical case. We have hardware, but we have no clue how old that hardware is, and we have no clue where that hardware is, and whether it makes sense to kick that hardware out, get a newer hardware, a better performing hardware, and what to replace that with, maybe. And of course, I already mentioned it a little bit, SAM manager, we want to be compliant, we want to survive audits, we want to be prepared for audits, and we do not want to run into big costs. We want to optimize our licenses while being compliant. And at the end of the day, of course, the CISO, he wants to do pretty much the same as the IT security officer and as everyone else. He wants to have the full overview of the full IT environment, of course, to ensure it's secure, but also to ensure that the end users have a good usability overall. And Kelly, I mentioned quite a lot personas in here, or quite a lot of persons. So as you have a good experience in ITAM and are a thought leader in that area, what do you think are like the most important current challenges in or with the technology catalog, or what a technology catalog is good for?
Yeah, so I think for me, there are a couple of things that come to mind. So as we just saw in these quotes, the ability to make informed decisions relies heavily on having the data to actually do that. But it also relies on the ability to bring different data sets together and to do that in an intelligent way. So I personally think that without a single source of truth, you kind of risk ambiguous data, resulting in things like bad strategic decisions, or potentially even something like unchecked security vulnerabilities. From my perspective, it's really important that a technology catalog is able to accurately bring you bring those normalized data points together so that the people involved can make those informed decisions that they want to make.
Mm-hmm. So the basis, so to say, is very important.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much what the problems are also focusing on. Like we listed here some, and really only some of the problems that might exist without a technology catalog. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's like incomplete data is one of the biggest aspects. Like if you don't even know what you have in your environment, or you don't have the market information, especially for that, you can't really solve any of those use cases that we just mentioned. Especially for security aspects, you have unrecognized vulnerabilities maybe. So you don't know that there are some out there in your environment. Especially right now, we have like a lot of rule sets and regulations coming that you need to be compliant with. And that's where a technology catalog also massively helps, because it gives you the full transparency as like the basis for all these regulations so that you can really work with that. Of course, you want to be compliant with the license terms, so software asset management, very important. You want to have those vulnerability fixed. And there's also the topic of technical debt, like you take decisions because you have a bad knowledge about your environment, and you do a quick decision, which might be very expensive afterwards. You have the missing information about end of life, end of support. So whenever someone is asking you, hey, do you even know how long that application will be still available? When will the support for that end? Well, let me tell you, based on our experience, there is a high percentage of software products in most environments that's already end of life. So there will be no more updates. There is a high potential for vulnerabilities. And when you ask the vendor about support, well, it's maybe even out of extended support. And that's a really, really big issue. And based on that, of course, you have those support gaps. And On the other side, if you then implement a technology catalog, you will have the full, complete, comprehensive set of data available, which is really, really reliable. You can close all of that, most of that security gaps, because you know where those are, and then you can take the next steps to close them. You can optimize your portfolio and rationalize it, which is also a very important aspect, because when you rationalize your portfolio and optimize it, you automatically have less challenges. Like if you decide to go away from like one software business function where you have 10 different software products for, and maybe you can get it down to 5 or 6 software products for the business function. It's 4 products or 5 products that you can really kick out. And for those, there will be normal vulnerabilities, normal end of life, end of support, things you need to look at. And also further costs like who will provide the software? If there's a new version, someone has to create a package, or you have a service provider doing that. All of those costs can be saved. Of course, you can then keep your infrastructure. So we remember the hardware asset manager, maybe modern and flexible. So you have a very good performant hardware and also software, of course. And at the end of the day, it's a single source of truth for all of your IT asset data, which you can then use in different use cases and also forward to different products and solutions, like forward it to your license management, to your SAM solution, to your item solution, to your enterprise architecture solution, doesn't matter. And based on that, you close those blind spots in your environment, and you can really proactively work with your software, with your hardware, and have control of it and do it proactively instead of just reacting to like new vulnerabilities that might appear, or end of life, end of business information that were not on your radar yet.
Yeah, proactive, not reactive, right?
Exactly.
So I wanted to jump in just for a second, because it seems to me that what underpins a lot of the problems that you've listed here is not so much like a complete lack of visibility, but a lack of good quality, good visibility. And I think my point being that data quality is hugely important in this space. So just for example, you could theoretically run a whole bunch of scripts, collect a whole load of raw data, but that data without added intelligence is essentially going to look like one big mess. And I'm sure there are a few people out there, possibly on here as well, who are able to manually translate that data into something meaningful. I've certainly given it a good go historically, but let me tell you, that is one heck of a process. And ultimately, it's not a realistic method, certainly not in medium or large environments. My point being that having good quality, intelligent data is as important as the data itself.
Absolutely. It needs to be readable and usable. Like
Yeah.
we also have many projects where we start and they are like, yes, we have Excel in place. We have all of our software listed here, and they have the raw data in there from, let's say, any kind of endpoint management solution, for example. And it's a pity because you can have like a Firefox installation, which is called, okay, this is Mozilla Firefox, and this one is Mozilla Firefox X64. This is Mozilla Firefox V121, so the version included in there. How do you want to optimize that? Someone needs to go through that manually to just figure out that they belong together. And that's where the technology catalog also comes into place, normalizes it, and you can then decide, okay, this is a very unique software product with a very unique vendor, and then you can work with that. Absolutely. Yeah, good point. So let's maybe see what information a technology catalog usually provides you. So in the core, like in the middle of the slide, you have the basis. Normalization, IT visibility, exactly what we just mentioned. You want to have the full overview of all your data, so collect it from different sources, combine it, and normalize it, make it readable, understandable. And then you have 2 different areas. Like one side is you want to optimize and save costs any kind of codes that might appear based on software and hardware. And on the other side, you have the risk and security potential. So how can we make our environment as secure as possible? So on the very top side, you can see what would be the basic information provided for, let's say, normalization for the first overview. And that's really, you want to have a unique vendor and you want to see all of the products that are from that vendor. You want to have a clear name, a unique name for each software product, including a version and the model of the software product, including the platform that the software is running on, the language package or the language that that software is installed in, and of course, some kind of product family so that you can solve for that as well. And then you can add the optimization part where you want to have a description. So what is this product really about, including a taxonomy? You want to have the business function, which is typically the UNSPSC standard, so that you have it like yeah, as a standard and can sort for that and decide whether two applications with the same business function are maybe replaceable. You want to have the commercial model of that software and maybe also the license type, whether it's freeware, whether it's a commercial software, and which kind of license model that is. And of course, on the risks and security potential, you want to see the vulnerabilities for that software, for that specific version, including a criticality and a scoring maybe, so that you can see what are the most important points. You want to have a description and further information for that vulnerability. You want to know when that was published. And you want to really know when will a software be end of life, when will it be end of support. We also listed you some numbers of projects. So typically there are about 30% reduced software codes if there was no technology catalog in place before we started the project. Also, there are like 43% software overlap, and that's really with, for example, business function, where we say, okay, you can use another software, which might be freeware, for example, to replace a specific software. And one thing, version sprawl, 46%. Well, typically the version sprawl is like 2 or 3 or even more. What does that mean? Easy example again. I just love to pick the example of Firefox. Think about your own environment. How many versions of Firefox will be there? Like it's typically like 10 or more different versions. Because sometimes auto update is activated, sometimes it's not. Some people are allowed to install it by themselves, and so on and so on. And based on that, you will have a very high version sprawl. So 50 or 46% is even low, in my opinion. And on the other side, you have 42% of products being end of life or end of support, 12% with a high vulnerability or OS high vulnerability. If you go for total vulnerabilities, that score is way higher. So those 12% typically focus on the really high vulnerabilities, like score of 8 or higher, and the score is from 1 to 10. And yeah, as I just noticed, it's below of that, 39% with a vulnerability score, which is higher than 8. And when a vulnerability score is higher than 8, you typically want to act instantly.
So you've listed a couple of things here that I'm sure we're all aware are super important. So you've got the optimization and cost savings along with risk and security potential. Now, one of the common challenges for individuals in the ITAM space is knowing which things to prioritize first. Would you say a technology catalog can help with that prioritization? And if so, how?
Absolutely, yeah. So it always also depends on what stage you're on. Like many projects start and people do not really know what they want to reach or what the goals are. And that's very important to know before you start. Like focus on one or two aspects and define what you want to reach with that. If you do that, well, there's a good chance that you already have some kind of prioritization. and you know your own priorities, and you can focus on that. But in any case, the basis is really the normalization IT visibility. And when you start using a technology catalog, you will also check how high your ratio of known devices is. And if you only know like 60% of your environment, well, that won't help you. So first goal will always be to have full transparency and to then have the full normalization. And based on that, you can then dive into the different use cases. Also, for your priorities, the first results will help you a lot. Like when you normalize and enrich your data with a technology catalog, you will have a high level overview of your results. And usually you will then see everything is red, which is really important, like where there is an issue, like a high vulnerability, or where you're massively under licensed, or where many products are end of life, end of support. So that will also give you some kind of priority listing. So yes, in any case, a technology product itself as a technology can help you, but also as in every IT initiative, it's always important to have someone on your side who's responsible for that and to have your very own goals in focus. Okay, that being said, that was one slide too much. Sorry. Okay. We also have some more highlights, like some results of studies, some results of projects. So I just mentioned regulatory and compliance nightmares. Audits are potentially causing fines, which might be 500K plus. Of course, it's always depending on the size of your company, but I think most of you might have had an audit in the past already, and it's really expensive. Like you have fines in there that you have to pay when you're under license, for example. Plus, you still have to buy the licenses in most cases, which is expensive enough as well. And your poor data quality also costs average organizations like 12 million US dollars every year. That might not be direct costs that you really see in the first place, but that might be due to bad quality of services behind that because you take bad decisions or you can't even take decisions. So all of that is causing a lot. And we also had a very specific use case with operational downtime, where the cost also same level, yeah, reached 500 million. Oh no, it's some more nulls behind that, 500 million US dollars because systems were down. Customers were not able to pay, for example. IT systems were not being able to be used. And that's really expensive as well. And that's what you do not want to happen. You don't want to have downtime, and a technology catalog can really help you, well, preparing not to have downtimes. Security breaches, well, going into the same direction. If you have a security breach, your systems might be down as well. If you're lucky, it takes 5 up to 7 days, which is a full week of work where your employees can't work, and where you only can focus on rebuilding your systems. And same thing, if you have a technology catalog in place, you can ensure a higher quality of your IT security, as well as you have the full transparency and maybe also be able to back up your systems faster because you know what you had in place, you know where that was in place, and you know where you or how to back up those systems. Same thing, or scalability. We often have technical debts, for example, where decisions need to be made. And if you make a decision based on bad data, the decision might be bad. You might not notice in first place, but you might notice some months or years later. And then it's very, very difficult to change that decision because maybe you brought in or bought a new software and suddenly you find out, well, there was a software in place already, and now we have 2 software products of that in place. Maybe even build up 2 teams for that. How do you want to replace that? That's very expensive as well. And in the same direction, strategic pitfalls. it's really, really important to know your systems so that you can go on with your strategy and have good decisions based on knowing your full environment. So a little bit of a summary, and also we often use that wording of data lake. So just bringing all of the data together in like let's say like a big pool. Yeah, it's always important. Key aspects: have the full overview and transparency. Have a standardization because then you can really work with your data. You want to have a resource management. So once again, knowing all of your resources so that you can really manage your IT assets, like licenses or hardware, like software. You want to support your decision making based on that. You want to have many integrations or the availability of integrations so that you can pull all of your data to a single point of truth. So one solution to provide information about software and hardware to every other solution, and to support your risk management for IT security, but also for all the other aspects such as strategies.
So Dennis, I think something that often puts people off using a technology catalog is the time investment in maintaining it. Now, I know that typically with the technology catalog, the core information is automatically populated, but I know that there are often things like adding in costs, perhaps managing custom SKUs that require some manual effort. So my first question is, what are your thoughts on this? And then do you think the time it saves in the months that follow outweighs the time investment of maintaining it?
So based on our experience, absolutely yes, because we've done many projects in that area and the efforts are not really that high. Of course, it depends once again on your full environment. If you have a standard environment, you get the catalog. Um, the catalog itself will automatically give you all the information that you require. And maybe you just have to add some further information, like you want to add your own coast, for example. Let's keep a simple example. Then you can do that manually, of course. So most solutions offer like a graphical user interface or an API where you can add that. But of course, there are also options to automate that. So for example, if you already have some kind of contract management, or if you have even your Excel table, yeah, where your software codes are in, there might be an integration which you can just connect and pull the data in and map that with your own data. So there are multiple ways, and also it really differs from company to company how much effort they spend on that. So there are companies out there who have like 0.2 employees working with the technology catalog at the beginning, and during the general operations, 0.1 at max, because they set up the system once and they just keep it going. Very big companies who do it on a more complex way, maybe, who want to have more information in there and who really get more new information also because they have more updates, they have more software, they purchase more changes in there. But also like some persons working on that, but it's not the high effort once you have implemented it. So there's always a onboarding phase which might be more or less efforts, but we literally saw no one really struggling with that because at the end of the day, the return of investment was always there or is always there because once you set up everything, you really can save costs at a really, really high rate. So we saw results like 15 times return of investments in some years, which is quite good, I would say. All right. And of course, I mentioned that I'm from RayNet, and you can see it also in the background. We also wanted to present you how our technology catalog or our solution is solving this topic. So basically, I already explained it while telling you how to set up a catalog or how that is built up usually. So what you see right now, True IT Asset Visibility, as one of our focus points. And typically on the left side, you have various data sources. So those can be in the cloud, like SaaS products or cloud products. You can have inventory sources, which of course might be our very own inventory solution, but also every other kind of inventory solution that you can connect to can be then connected and you can pull data from it. A typical data source, of course, is the Active Directory. You have databases, you have security tools, which are more and more connected as well. You have the endpoint management solutions, so deployment solutions, and of course, network management solutions or the network itself to connect to. You will see some of the logos on the very left side. We have like, I think, 300 connections out of the box, growing every day, every week, because, you know, every minute there is a new software product out there, and some reach a level that companies are introducing it. And whenever we have a new data source that's interesting for a single customer or all of the customers or many customers, we will create a connection to that and automatically pull the data into our solution as well. And as we talked about normalization, in that solution, there's an ETL process, meaning we extract the data from those data sources, we transform those, and we load them. What does it mean? Well, if you have, for example, a client which is in the Active Directory, maybe also was inventoried, and maybe also was in the deployment system, you want or you do not want to have those three assets in your final results. And this process is ensuring that you merge all of those three. So you have the information about, for example, my laptop only once, but with all important information from each data source. So you can then see which source, for example, had the most information, prioritize that, and get information from the others where your first source, for example, did not have every information. And based on that, then the software and the hardware will be normalized, as we have just seen, and enriched with the market information. And we see many issues doing that. Yeah, so many outdated. You can see it 49% outdated inventory, for example. So if you even follow like the Microsoft rule, yeah, 30 days. Often the inventory results are older, so not really usable. Many software which is overlapping, of course. We also mentioned high vulnerabilities or high amount of vulnerabilities, and that we can really save a lot of software codes. And at the end of the day, the technology catalog itself does not have to be the end of the line. You will forward the data to any system where you want to have it. This might be your very classic CMDB or your data lake, for example. This might be your security tool. So they also can reuse that information because you have like transparency of where your devices are and where you have vulnerabilities. You have the same thing for license management, so or software asset management, for hardware asset management. You can have it in your item system, in your IT service management. You can even have it in Excel if you want to. We don't really mind. Yeah, you can forward it, you can export it to wherever you want to have it. Oops. And last but not least, I always click once too often. As a little bit of a summary, and then we will also go into a Q&A with you guys. So what does our technology catalog offer you? Well, we have saved like 200 or can save like 200 million plus by usage of a data lake. So there's a study on that. Really, by just using it, you can save a lot of cost. We just talked about return of investment. You will have more confidence in your audits. So whenever there is a vendor knocking on your door, and I know there are some vendors who really want to do that in the next time, you're prepared. You can tell them, look, I have full transparency. And if you are able to do that, in most cases, they are not really interested in you anymore, which is good because you have the results available. you don't need to be scared about relicensing or paying a fee because you're unlicensed. You can really scale your IT security. It's very difficult to have a number on that, but 60% is a quite good number. Depending on where you are right now, it might be even higher, or if you're good already, maybe even lower, but even scaling your IT cybersecurity by 10%, that's worth it. Yeah? If you then do not have a or a security breach at all, you can really save a lot of costs in your IT portfolio by reducing software, by reducing hardware, and of course, using a single source of truth, you can be very, very fast in your decision making, but also in your whole processing. Like if you focus on one single source of truth, and not every team does it by themselves, you can save quite a lot of time. And with that being said, let's dive into the Q&A. So
Yeah,
Kelly, you know it better than me. There is a Q&A panel.
I will dig it out. Let me grab the mouse. Right. Okay. So we have a question here that says, how can we more effectively manage risks for IT assets using the life cycle data provided by the technology catalog? Specifically, what preventative steps should be taken when assets are approaching end of life and end of support stages?
That's a good question. It's also a little bit about the priorities again. So basically, what's important is having the knowledge that there will be a software end of life, end of support. Of course, the logical step would be, hey, there is software end of life, end of support. We set up a plan whenever there is a software end of life or end of support. We check like half a year earlier whether there is a new version available by the vendor. And that's quite an important step because when a software is end of life or end of support, there might be two different outcomes. One might be, look, there's a new version, perfect, update it if that's possible, and you're good. The other one is maybe the vendor does not provide a new version, or the software really is end of life because, vendor is getting merged and the product won't be available anymore. We see that happening quite a lot. Then you need to replace that. And replacing a software in your environment is really, really difficult from time to time because you have different stakeholders, and sometimes even when you have the market information and the technical information, it's not enough because there might be a special use case or there might be some other software relying on that software. Yeah, so a dependency. So that's why we would say always have your overview of the end of life, end of support, and proactively work with that. Set yourself a date where you check that, where you have still enough time to act, and have a plan on when you really want to then update this software or when you want to replace that software.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I have another question here.
Mm-hmm.
So how can companies leverage the data provided by the catalog to more effectively analyze and prioritize security vulnerabilities?
Sort them by criticality. Also, basically what you usually get is like a scoring, right? So it's like usually from 1 to 10, and 10 would be very urgent. 1 would be it's a vulnerability. Nearly every software has a vulnerability. And well, usually we say when it's 8 or higher, the security team really should check the options because that's a high or a vulnerability where anyone could make use of that real quick. And you then want to check what are the possible next steps. And usually for the vulnerabilities, we will also show you what are your options. Like we will give you further information of what that vulnerability really is and whether there is information, for example, by the vendor or by some other pages on how to solve that. And typically, if there is a high vulnerability, also the vendor will be very interested in providing an update or a patch for that. And that's usually the step you want to take. And typically what our customers also do is like they set up an automation where you get information about vulnerabilities every day. So maybe every morning or maybe every 2 or 3 hours, only with the information whether there is a critical vulnerability popping up. If so, they will react directly. If there are only the usual vulnerabilities, of course, they will also handle those, but with a lower priority. So that really helps you keeping an eye on all of your vulnerabilities and to really manage them.
Thank you for that. There is actually, we've got another question here. Oh, we're getting some questions in. That's nice. So let me cover this question first. It's a bit of a vague question here, so I'm not sure if we quite have enough information to answer it, but I'll see what your thoughts are. Technology catalog, can you share a few examples of the same? And it goes on to say, please, can you share some use cases? So that might be a little bit too vague for us to answer that. I think you've covered off a lot of use cases when it comes to technology catalog, unless there's anything you want to elaborate on.
Yeah, maybe whoever asked that can specify it a little bit.
Yeah,
that would be great.
If provide a bit more detail. Oh, here we go. We've got clarification. That was quick. How does the technology catalog integrate with other IT management tools, for example, ITSM, asset management? And what challenges have we faced in integrating the catalog with existing systems, and how were they addressed?
Yeah, so firstly, whatever kind of system that is, there are like 2 different directions. First of all, we can pull data from that because typically your ITSM or your item or whatever it is has inventory data in there. You can decide whether you pull the data from the item or from that solution, or whether you really go to the sources and get the data directly, which I would always suggest to do, because then you get the full set of data. Many systems are sorting out data or like manipulating data already. That's not what you want to have. You want to have really the full data. So then the technology catalog can really give you information about everything, and nothing is kept out or kept away from your eyes, right? And the other direction is single source of truth. We then provide the data to those systems again. And we have many cases where an ITSM or ITS management already is in place, and they then work with the enriched data. So, simple example, we have a customer who provides their users a self-service portal where they can order software. And in the old days, they could just type in anything they wanted, or had like 3 products that were offered. And with the technology catalog, they get much more information. Like they will automatically see, for example, I'm looking for a browser, and the first thing they will see is Firefox, because Firefox has most installations. It's a freeware software. It has low vulnerabilities, and that's why you should choose this one. And there might be Edge on that page as well as maybe, I don't know, Google Chrome. And only on the next side, maybe you have the option to install Safari or something like that, or to request your very individual software. And that information, or all of that, can only be provided by using a technology catalog. And that's only one example. But the goal is always to get that market information in there and to provide it to your end users, to your IT system owners, whatever they require. You want to enable them to use that on the end solution. So in that case, on the IT asset management, for example, on the self-service portal. And I think the other question was whether we faced some challenges. Well, everyone always does in IT projects. The biggest challenge is to really get all stakeholders on board, because you often have like everyone sitting on their own data, and they do the very best with that data. And sometimes it's difficult to show them or yeah, to really show them or let them understand that it makes sense to share the data. They're not giving away anything. They're getting more back than they had before. And still, they can be responsible for the data. It's totally fine. But you really want, in the best case, to have one single source of truth, for example, 4 different departments where they share the important information, but still only have access to the relevant data for them, plus the market information that you added with the technology catalog.
We have another question here. So out of the box dashboards and reports provide quick access to the analysis they need. Which decision-making processes are most accelerated for IT managers, and what key factors enable them to take effective action based on these strategic insights?
Not sure if I get that question
Yeah,
at 100%.
Yeah, out of the box dashboards and reports provide quick access to the analysis they need. Which decision-making process? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's being asked there. So if you want to clarify, please go ahead.
Yes, but maybe I can also give it a shot. Like basically, yes, out of the box dashboards, there are plenty, right? Not talking only about our solution, but other solutions as well. They will always come with a lot of out of the box dashboards. And those dashboards are typically always focusing in the first step on a high level overview so that you really see, as we just talked about, priorities, where you have to act. So what's red, what's green. And then you really want to dive into each topic and you can really, really dive deep into that. So typically there are many dashboards and reports based on whatever data you want to have. And typically you also have different directions. Like you can focus on the software and go to the devices. You can focus on devices and go to the software and hardware. You can even go to user and see which hardware and software he has. So very, very different directions, always depending on what you want to see. And speaking of our solution, of course, it's very easy to also customize out of the box dashboards or create your own ones. So it has a graphical user interface. You just drag and drop the information that you want to have and build up your very own dashboards.
I'm aware we're running out of time. Let's see if we can get the last 2 questions. I know. Can we integrate Power BI for reporting? Is another question. Yes? Easy answer. This question I find quite a good one because it kind of ties in with one of the other questions. So, okay, what additional features or capabilities would enhance the value of our technology catalog? And they've also said, how do we plan to evolve our technology catalog to keep pace with emerging technologies and cybersecurity threats? So it's a bit of an interesting question, but I particularly like the question around evolution of the technology catalog. I thought that was quite interesting. So
yes, absolutely, and that's always a focus point. Yeah, involving, getting better. And many customers are always challenging us, which is good. So firstly, all of the technology catalogs really also started a little bit with the focus on a little bit more of SAM, right? So being compliant, knowing about that, then going more into end of life, end of support, business functions, stuff like that. The latest topic was hardware. And for example, we added that as well because there are many aspects. Like 2 or 3 years ago, green IT was a very, very big thing. And we all know, based on regulations, that it will be a big thing again. So you also want to know about your hardware. How much energy is it taking? How expensive in terms of green IT is my process? Like how big is my carbon footprint? If I don't know, start the service to get a new computer, for example. Users want to know that, and some regulations will want to know that. So hardware is really a hot topic. We just added that, for example, and IoT will be a big thing in near future. So not only the classic hardware that you have in your offices, but production IT or many other non-typical IT devices, maybe without a classic OS system, will be more and more important. And of course, I think it was a question about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is really moving into the direction of IT asset management more and more. And both sides will benefit from that. So the cybersecurity tools themselves rely on good data quality because you can only have like secure environment if you know which devices you have to deploy your cybersecurity tools on. And we often see that it's not the case. Like, yes, there is a cybersecurity solution in place, or 2 or 3 ones, but they do not cover all of the devices. So we can help them with that. And on the other side, they can help us with information on whether there are further vulnerabilities or issues with the devices, which we can add to our IT asset management, for example, and really work with that. So that will be very important to get those two things close together, as well as any other kind of integration. It will all be about bringing together information and work with that information.
Amazing, thank you. We've had another question come in, but I think we've run out of time now. So
crazy how time flies. Yeah,
we would keep going on forever. What we can do is we can come back to you on that question. Yeah, and someone's just posted saying thank you as well. This is not a question. Raynet produces excellent products. There you go. And Dennis is very skilled at presenting.
Thank you very much.
So that's always nice to receive a compliment. I think that's fantastic.
I hope he said, or he or she said the same about you.
Well,
no, honestly, thank you everyone who joined us today. So it was really interesting and really so many questions. That's great to see. So there is a great interest in that topic. We will follow up every question that might be still open. Also, you can also contact Kelly or me about any further information you want to have. If you want to go into your use cases, happy to do that. And Kelly, once again, thank you very much for this meeting.
No, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, everyone. And I will end the webinar now. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.